The holographic display flickered with 10,000 red dots, each one an enemy dreadnought, and Commander Yelen Vasari of the Korath Defense Fleet realized she was looking at extinction. Not her own. She'd made peace with death years ago. But the extinction of every soul on Korath Prime, all 8 billion of them, sleeping peacefully beneath purple skies, while annihilation crept closer at 0.3 light speed. 62 hours until the Vorn Armada reaches weapons range, her tactical officer announced, his voice cracking on the last word. Vasari didn't respond. She was too busy watching the human. He sat in the corner of the war room, this borrowed consultant from Earth's expeditionary forces, scribbling on an actual paper notebook like some primitive. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Chen, according to his file. 43 years old. Veteran of the Sol insurgency. Decorated for something called creative problem-solving under duress. The Korath High Council had requested human military advisors 6 months ago, when the Vorn Empire first declared war. They'd gotten 12 specialists. 11 were dead now. Chen was the last. Human. Admiral Torek's deep voice rumbled across the chamber. The Korath commander stood nearly 3 meters tall, his blue-scaled skin reflecting the crimson glow of the tactical display. You have been silent for 4 hours. The council demands your assessment. Chen looked up from his notebook. His eyes were bloodshot, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. You want my honest assessment, Admiral? I want a solution. There isn't one. Chen stood, joints popping. He walked to the display and gestured at the swarm of red. The Vorn have 10,000 capital ships. You have 600. Their shields regenerate faster than your weapons can drain them. Their fighter complement outnumbers yours 40 to 1. He paused. By every metric that matters, you've already lost. Silence fell over the war room. Korath officers exchanged glances, some angry, others afraid. Admiral Torek's eyes narrowed, the vertical slits of his pupils contracting. Then why are you here, human? To witness our end? No. Chen tapped his notebook against his palm. I'm here because metrics don't win wars. People do. And people, even people like the Vorn, make assumptions. Assumptions, Torek repeated flatly. The Vorn assume this will be a fleet battle, because that's what they're good at. They assume you'll defend your orbital stations because that's standard doctrine. They assume you'll surrender when their numbers become overwhelming because that's what every other species has done. Chen smiled, thin and humorless. They're right about all of it. If you fight their war, you lose. What alternative exists? Chen walked to the secondary display and pulled up the Vorn fleet's projected trajectory. The aliens had 10,000 ships. I had one idea. He said it quietly, almost to himself, then looked at Torek. Do you know what guerrilla warfare is, Admiral? Torek's mandibles clicked in confusion. I do not understand this term. It means we don't fight their fleet. We don't defend your stations. We do something so insane, so against every rule of civilized warfare, that they won't see it coming until it's too late. Chen pointed at a small moon orbiting Korath Prime's gas giant neighbor. That's Sentinel Station, yes? Your deep space sensor array? Correct. It has already been evacuated. Good. Because I want to blow it up. The room erupted. Officers shouted objections. One actually drew his sidearm before being restrained by colleagues. Admiral Torek raised a clawed hand and silence returned, but his expression was thunderous. You suggest we destroy our own infrastructure? This is your human wisdom. I suggest we destroy your sensor array, in a very specific way. Chen zoomed in on the moon's position. The Vorn don't know Sentinel Station has been evacuated. Their intelligence is good, but not that good. When they see us defending it with our entire fleet, they'll assume it's still operational. Strategic target. High value. And then we fill it with every antimatter warhead you have. Let them board it, and turn 300 of their ships into expanding plasma. Chen met Torek's stare without flinching. It won't win the war. But it'll make them angry enough to make mistakes. And that's when we really start hurting them. Admiral Torek studied the human for a long moment. You speak of deception. Of traps. This is not honorable warfare. No, Chen agreed. It isn't. Honor is a luxury for people who aren't facing extinction. He gestured at the 10,000 red dots. You can die with honor, Admiral. Or you can live with pragmatism. I know which one your 8 billion civilians would prefer. The Admiral's mandibles worked silently. Around him his officers waited, and for the first time since the war began, Vasari saw something other than despair in their eyes. She saw the faintest flicker of hope. The plan was simple in theory and nightmarish in execution. Vasari stood on the bridge of the knee, thunder in fury, watching her crew prepare for what would either be the greatest deception in Korath military history or the most spectacular mass suicide. Beside her, Chen reviewed the countdown on his personal display, muttering calculations under his breath. Antimatter payload is secured, the weapons officer reported. 800 warheads distributed throughout Sentinel Station. Detonation yield, approximately 47 teratons. Enough to vaporize anything within 2,000 kilometers, Chen confirmed. Now we just need them to take the bait. And if they don't? Vasari asked. Then we improvise. Chen looked at her. Your people don't do that much, do you? Improvise? The Korath believe in preparation, in calculated strategy. Vasari's voice held no defensiveness, only truth. A warrior enters battle knowing every possible outcome, and when something impossible happens, she didn't answer. She didn't have to. The Korath military had been designed to fight enemies who played by rules, who valued fleet formations, orbital superiority, the elegant mathematics of predictable warfare. They had never faced an enemy like the Vorn, who overwhelmed through sheer numbers and industrial brutality. They had certainly never fought alongside humans. All ships, this is Admiral Torek. The fleet-wide communication crackled through every speaker. We execute Operation Deception in 30 minutes. Remember, we are not trying to win this engagement. We are trying to appear desperate while making an orderly retreat. The enemy must believe they are driving us back. Chen snorted quietly. Something amusing? Vasari asked. Just thinking about how hard it must be for Korath warriors to fake incompetence. He smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. Don't worry, Commander. After this is over, you'll have plenty of real defeats to study. You are a strange species, human. We get that a lot. The next 30 minutes passed in tense silence. Vasari watched her crew, young officers barely out of the academy, veterans who'd served 3 wars, engineers who knew these ships better than their own families. All of them would die if Chen's plan failed. All of them would die anyway if it didn't. Contact, the sensor officer announced. Vorn advance force dropping out of FTL, 342 vessels. They're moving towards Sentinel Station. As predicted, Chen murmured. Their scouts take point, probe our defenses, report back to the main fleet. He looked at Torek's image on the command display. Admiral, they need to see us defending that station like our lives depend on it. Korath do not pretend, human. Today you do. Think of it as method acting. Torek's eyes narrowed, but he gave the order. The Korath fleet surged forward, 600 ships moving to intercept the Vorn scouts. Plasma fire erupted across the void, brilliant green from Korath weapons, angry red from Vorn cannons. Vasari watched the engagement unfold. Her people were dying. Real ships, real crews, disintegrating into expanding clouds of debris. This was the cost of deception, blood spent to purchase believability. Korath 7th Wing reports 40% casualties, the tactical officer said. They're requesting permission to... Denied, Chen cut in. They hold position for 3 more minutes, then begin staged retreat. 3 more minutes will destroy them? Yes. Chen's voice was flat. It will. And when the Vorn see that we sacrificed an entire wing to protect Sentinel Station, they'll know it's valuable enough to capture instead of destroy. He turned to Vasari. War has costs, Commander. The question is whether you're willing to pay them. She wanted to hate him. This cold human with his paper notebooks and his calculated cruelty. But she couldn't, because he was right. The alternative was 8 billion dead. 7th Wing, she said into the comm. Hold position, for Korath, for home. The response came back, for home. 3 minutes later, the Korath 7th Wing ceased to exist. But the deception held. The Vorn advance force swept towards Sentinel Station, their formations tightening into boarding configuration. They'd taken the bait. They believed. Now comes the hard part, Chen said, watching the enemy ships dock with the station. Waiting. Wait. They waited 7 hours. 7 hours of watching Vorn troops swarm through Sentinel Station, of intercepted communications celebrating their capture of a critical intelligence asset, of Chen pacing the bridge like a caged predator, while Vasari's crew sat in suffocating silence. The main Vorn fleet had arrived 2 hours ago. 10,000 ships forming a blockade around Korath Prime, so dense that the planet's surface had fallen into perpetual shadow. They hadn't attacked yet. They were waiting for the information their boarding parties would extract from Sentinel Station's computers. Information that didn't exist, because Chen had spent 3 days purging every database and replacing them with elaborate fabrications. Movement, the sensor officer reported. The Vorn are pulling ships away from the station. Looks like they're redistributing to... Wait. She leaned forward. That's wrong. They're positioning for orbital bombardment. Chen stopped pacing. What? Confirmed. 1,200 vessels, breaking formation, moving toward planetary weapons range. Admiral Torek, they're not going to demand surrender. They're going to start killing civilians. The bridge erupted into chaos. Officers shouted for orders, for countermeasures, for something that would stop the slaughter about to begin. Admiral Torek's voice cut through the noise. Detonate the charges. Now. Done. Admiral, we don't have enough Vorn ships in the kill zone, Chen protested. We'll only get maybe 100. My people are about to die, human. Detonate. Chen's jaw tightened. Vasari saw the calculation in his eyes, weighing numbers, probabilities, the cold mathematics of acceptable losses. Then something shifted in his expression. Something almost, human. No, he said. I have another idea. We don't have time for, shut up and listen. Chen pulled up the tactical display, fingers flying across the interface. The Vorn bombardment group is moving away from the main fleet. That means they're breaking formation, spreading thin. If we detonate now, we get 100 ships. But if we bring our entire fleet out of hiding and hit their bombardment group from behind, we'd be exposed to the main fleet, Vasari said. For about 6 minutes, yes. But the bombardment group would be caught between us and the planet. No retreat, no reinforcement. We could destroy all 1,200. Chen met her eyes. And then we detonate Sentinel Station while the main fleet is still reeling. The casualties would be catastrophic. Torek's voice came through the comm. We'd lose half our remaining ships. You'll lose all of them if the Vorn glass your planet, Admiral. This way, you have a chance. A real one. Chen's voice softened. Barely. I know I'm asking your people to die. But I'm asking them to die for something. Not just to delay the inevitable. Silence stretched across the command channel. Vasari could hear Torek breathing, the heavy rasp of a warrior facing an impossible choice. Commander Vasari, the Admiral finally said. What is your assessment? She looked at Chen, really looked at him for the first time. This human who had watched her people die by the thousands, who calculated their lives like ammunition expenditure, who treated warfare like a chess game where the pieces bled. And yet, he was still here, still fighting, still looking for another way. I think, she said slowly, that the human is insane, reckless, completely without honor. She paused. I also think he's our only chance. Torek was silent for a long moment. All ships, he finally commanded. Battle stations. We execute the human's plan in 5 minutes. His voice hardened. May the ancestors forgive us for what we're about to do. The Battle of Korath Prime would be studied for centuries. Vasari lived through it in fragments, screaming alarms, the shriek of tearing metal, Chen's voice cutting through the chaos with impossible calm. The Korath fleet emerged from the planet's magnetic shadow like ghosts, 412 ships slamming into the Vorn bombardment group's exposed flank. The first 60 seconds were slaughter. The Vorn, caught completely off guard, scrambled to reform their lines while Korath plasma cannons tore through their shields. Ships exploded in cascades of fire, their crews never knowing what hit them. Then the Vorn main fleet began to respond. Enemy reinforcements inbound, the sensor officer shouted. 2,000, 3,000. They're pulling ships from all sectors. Let them come, Chen said. He stood at the center of the bridge, watching the tactical display with predatory focus. Every ship they send is one more that gets caught in the blast. Vasari wanted to believe him. But the reality of combat was drowning his confidence in blood. Around her, Korath ships died by the dozen. The vengeful storm, gone. The celestial talon, gone. The pride of Korath, engines crippled and spinning into a collision course with a Vorn dreadnought. We're losing too many, she shouted. We're winning, Chen countered. Look at the bombardment group. She looked. Where 1,200 Vorn ships had threatened planetary annihilation, now fewer than 300 remained. Trapped between the Korath fleet and the planet's gravity well, unable to escape, unable to call for help. Bombardment group neutralized in 90 seconds, Chen announced. Admiral Torek, initiate Phase 2. Torek's response was barely audible over the chaos. Sentinel Station charges, armed. Detonation in 60 seconds. The countdown began. Vasari watched it tick down while her ship shuddered under enemy fire. 50 seconds. A Vorn destroyer crashed into the Thundering Fury's port shields, nearly collapsing them. 40 seconds. Chen grabbed a support strut as the deck lurched, still watching his display. 30 seconds. Multiple Vorn capital ships docking with Sentinel Station, the sensor officer reported. They're evacuating their wounded, using the station as a field hospital. Chen's expression didn't change. Good. More ships in the kill zone. 20 seconds. Human, Vasari said quietly. Those are wounded soldiers. Non-combatants. Those are enemy assets that will return to kill your people if we let them live. Chen finally looked at her. I told you at the start, Commander. This isn't honorable warfare. This is survival. 10 seconds. 5-20. 0. Sentinel Station vanished in a sphere of white fire. The antimatter detonation consumed everything within 2,000 kilometers. 347 Vorn warships, 2 support carriers, 1 command dreadnought, and approximately 90,000 enemy personnel. The shockwave rippled outward, destabilizing nearby vessels, triggering secondary explosions that claimed another 100 ships. The Vorn main fleet recoiled. For a species that prized numerical superiority above all else, losing 400 ships in a single instant was incomprehensible. Unacceptable. Terrifying. They're retreating, the sensor officer whispered. The main fleet is pulling back. Vasari stared at the display. It was true. The Vorn Armada, still 8,000 strong, was withdrawing, regrouping, beyond weapons range. Their formation had fractured, discipline crumbling as individual captains struggled to process what had just happened. They'll be back, Chen said. Probably within days. But now they're scared. He turned to face the bridge crew. Korath officers who had watched their comrades die, who had committed acts that violated every code of honor they'd been raised to believe. Fear is a weapon, Commander. Today, you learned how to use it. Admiral Torek's image appeared on the display. The old warrior looked exhausted, his scales pale, his eyes haunted, human. We have lost 187 ships, nearly 30,000 of our finest warriors, and you've killed over 400,000 of theirs. Chen's voice held no triumph, only grim satisfaction. The Vorn have never lost an engagement this badly. When they return, they won't underestimate you again. Is that supposed to comfort me? No. It's supposed to prepare you. Chen picked up his notebook, tucked it under his arm. The next battle will be harder. The one after that, harder still. But every time they attack, they'll remember Sentinel Station. They'll remember what happens when they assume victory is certain. Torek studied him for a long moment. You are not what I expected, human. When the Council requested advisors from Earth, I thought they sent us soldiers. Warriors. They did. No, doubt. Torek shook his head slowly. They sent us something far more dangerous. They sent us teachers. His mandibles clicked, a Korath gesture of grudging respect. I do not like you, Lieutenant Commander Chen. I do not approve your methods, but I will learn from them. Chen smiled. This time, it almost looked genuine. That's all I ever wanted, Admiral. That's what humans do. We learn, we adapt, we survive. He glanced at Vasari. And sometimes, we teach others to do the same. The thundering fury drifted through the debris field, surrounded by the wreckage of 2 fleets. Behind them, Korath Prime turned slowly, its cities still standing, its people still alive. One idea against 10,000 ships. It wasn't a victory. Not really. It was a beginning. The first step in a war that would last decades, claim millions of lives, and ultimately reshape the balance of power across the entire galaxy. But today, the Korath had survived. And tomorrow, they would fight again. That was the human way. YouTube description, 1,000 characters, 10,000 enemy dreadnoughts, 600 defenders, 62 hours until extinction. Commander Yelen Vasari watches Korath Prime sleep under purple skies while the Vorn Armada closes in, an unstoppable wall of steel and regenerating shields. Humanity sends 12 advisors. 11 die. The last one, Marcus Chen, brings no miracle weapon, just one insane idea. He turns an evacuated deep space sensor station into a baited trap. 800 antimatter warheads, a staged retreat, and a sacrifice meant to make the Vorn overconfident. But when the Vorn pivot to orbital bombardment, Chen gambles everything, ambushing their bombardment group, then detonating Sentinel Station at the exact moment their reinforcements converge. The Korath lose thousands. The Vorn lose hundreds of ships in a single flash. And for the first time in the war, the invaders feel something new. Fear. Keywords HFI, HFI, Sci-Fi, military Sci-Fi, space war, last stand, alien armada, antimatter trap, guerrilla warfare, fleet tactics, orbital bombardment, human strategy, underdog victory, tactical deception, space battle story.